Okay, folks. I just realized you guys are well behind the moments here, so you might be a little bit momentarily confused by that. So here's what we're looking at, folks. It's going to be the week in review. I'm just going to, as the title suggests, I'm just going to give you my thoughts on everything. So let's do this as we go. First off, we are on the final stage of the road to WrestleMania. So, and we've already got some people here saying hi, so I'm going to say hi back to one Jeremiah Robitaille. Hey, how you doing, big guy? So, nice to see you there. Anyhow, so we're going to take this one step at a time and go as we go. So, first off, let's talk about WrestleMania. We do now have the finalized card. At least as far as I know, it is the finalized card. We might see one or two things thrown at us on Friday, which is supposed to be this big WrestleMania edition of SmackDown. Also, I do have my air conditioner on, so if anybody in the back can hear that in the background and it's distracting you, let me know. If you can't hear it, well, then, hey, we're good. All right, so I am going to read off the matches for both nights, and then I'm going to go down the list and discuss my thoughts on these matches and who I think is going to win, who I'd like to see win, and whether or not I think we're going to get any kind of, as JR used to call them, shenanigans. So first off, night one, that's Saturday, April 10th. That's this Saturday. Remember, they decided that apparently things worked so well last year in splitting WrestleMania across two nights, they're going to do it again. So they're going the Wrestle Kingdom route, following in the footsteps of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Of course, on the plus side, they are finally going to have a live crowd, which is a first for them for the better part of the year, since after the Performance Center, where they actually had wrestlers acting as the crowd, they just went to that weird Thunderdome thing. All right, so night one, our first match will be Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair, singles match for the WWE SmackDown Women's Championship. And these are not necessarily in the order that they are going to be shown on the show, by the way. This is just what Wikipedia's got for the match listing, so deal with it. Bobby Lashley, the reigning WWE champion with MVP in his corner, will take on former WWE champion, two-time WWE champion, in fact, Drew McIntyre. Bad Bunny and Damian Priest will take on The Miz and John Morrison. The New Day, specifically Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, will take on AJ Styles and Omos. Omos. I still have a hard time figuring out how to pronounce that. I mean, they change that around on WWE every so often, so don't fault me too much for the confusion. Next, we have Braun Strowman versus Shane McMahon. This is going to be inside of a steel cage. Then we have Cesaro versus Seth Rollins. And then the last match of the night is going to be what they call Tag Team Turmoil. It'll be Lana and Naomi taking on Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose, taking on the Riot Squad, taking on Natalya and Tamina. Now, for those of you who don't know what a Tag Team Turmoil match is, it's literally pretty much the same thing, just running like a gauntlet almost. You would have, like, all these guys are going to be in there fighting it out, and the winner gets a shot at the Women's Tag Team Championships on night two. Speaking of night two, let's take a look at that, because this is going to be one of those things. We have Roman Reigns, the Universal Champion, taking on Edge and Daniel Bryan in a triple threat match. I called this because I knew they were going to try to do something. As a result of Fastlane, I suggested that this was one of the things they might be doing, because I didn't know if they were going to have an issue where Roman might not be medically cleared, but they didn't want to make it too easy for Edge, or maybe they just weren't sure who they wanted to put the Universal title on, so they decided, I guess, to make it a triple threat match. I thought this could have been one of any number of things. Daniel Bryan even suggested a couple of things. ultimately they decided triple threat. Asuka, the Raw Women's Champion, will take on Rhea Ripley. I don't really know much about Rhea Ripley. I really have no opinion on her. The Fiend, Bray Wyatt. Now, this might not even be Bray Wyatt under the mask, but it probably is supposed to be him. With Alexa Bliss in his corner, will take on Randy Orton. For the Intercontinental Championship, we've got Big E Langston, just Big E in WWE these days, but he was originally called Big E Langston. We'll take on Apollo Crews in, they're calling it a Nigerian drum fight. It's basically just a hardcore match. Kevin Owens will take on Sami Zayn. Supposedly Logan Paul is going to be, I don't know if he's going to be ringside. I don't know if he's going to be in Zayn's corner or what, but he's supposed to be the quote-unquote guest of honor for Sami Zayn at WrestleMania. We saw what happened with the rather oddball documentary trailer for Sami's insane conspiracy theory documentary. I don't know what I feel about that. I don't know if I feel anything about that, period. It's a funny storyline, but I think it's kind of run its course. Matt Riddle versus Sheamus for the United States Championship. I did predict that we were going to get a U.S. title match at WrestleMania. I just wasn't sure who he was going to fight. We now know it is Sheamus. And then finally, the Women's Tag Team Championship will be on the line as Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler with Reginald, formerly the corner man of one Carmella, will take on the winners of Tag Team Turmoil. All right, so that's our card lineup for each of the two nights. Now let me go back and talk about each match as I see it, or at least as is coming to my mind. First off, we have Tag Team Turmoil. Okay, I can live with this. Since it's literally teams from both shows, they're going to have a chance to go after the women's tag team titles. I can get behind that because the women's tag team title right now is the only championship really that floats between the two shows. This was how WWE's Undisputed title was supposed to work when they initially did the brand extension, but there were some bizarre backstage shenanigans there, and that's how we ended up with each championship on each show. So I'm not sure who to pick on this. I'll be honest, I kind of want to see Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose win it, simply because we haven't gotten a chance to see that much done with this particular tag team. We've seen a lot of Lana and Naomi, and I know they're going to try to push Naomi because she's just come back, but I don't necessarily know that I want to see her and Lana take on Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, because we've kind of already seen that story. Next, we have Cesaro and Seth Rollins. This one's kind of interesting. Now, both men have recently returned. Cesaro was out for about a week and a half. I don't know what exactly was the story there. But he's come back to continue the feud with Seth Rollins, who has returned to WWE as a result of taking time off to be with his, I don't know if they're still engaged or if they have indeed married, his fiance, wife, whatever, Becky Lynch, and their newborn daughter. And again, congratulations to Seth on becoming a newly minted father. This one I'm not sure if I can call because, again, both men are riding relatively high. I do think that we're going to see Seth Rollins come out with another win. He's only been back about a month and a half. He got the win at Fastlane. I do think we're going to see it again here. Braun Strowman versus Shane McMahon. This is a weird one. And that's me being nice about it because I don't really understand why Shane McMahon came back at all or why he even has any authority in the company, since he supposedly lost whatever stock he had in the WWE years ago. And I don't know if that's in real life or if that's I believe that's in real life. He actually sold his stock in WWE. I want to say to get involved in some form of MMA. Give me just a moment here, folks. I got to take a quick drink. Sorry about that. Need to wet my whistle. I hate that phrase, by the way. So anyway, Shane came back, wanted to control Monday Night Raw, had that whole match with The Undertaker. Strictly speaking, he's not even really supposed to have any real power behind the scenes, since, again, storyline-wise, he's got no control or any leverage over Vince, and in real life, he doesn't even have the stock that he once did. Now, he might have bought some of that back. It's fully possible. But this whole thing with Braun Strowman, I don't know what the point of this is. I don't know if they're trying to build up Shane as like the next generation of major backstage heel authority figure. I could be wrong here, but I don't think that's what they're doing. This might just be done for the point of the whole David versus Goliath, let Goliath win for once, that kind of thing. Again, not sure. I mean, we already kind of got that with The Undertaker beating the crap out of him at Hell in a Cell like 2-3 years ago. I don't know. This is being held inside the confines of a steel cage. Now, as anybody who's watched WWE, AEW, any promotion in the world can tell you, the basic premise is you get inside a steel cage, literally anything goes, there are no rules. So this one's, again, kind of a hard one to call. I'd like to see Braun get the win here just because the way they're building it, it really does make it feel like this is what they're going for. I mean, again, I could be entirely wrong. And I've got nothing to determine which way I would go on this. I really don't. I'd like to see Braun win, but I couldn't prove that Shane McMahon won't try to pull something with Jackson Riker and Elias, because, I mean, this is a feud that could go for a while. We'll have to wait and see. Next, we have The New Day versus AJ Styles and Omos. Again, I don't really know how I'm supposed to pronounce this. They've made something of a big deal out of Omos. The dude's like damn near 7 feet tall, maybe a little over. He is genuinely huge. I mean, he towers over AJ, who's a good, like, I don't know, like 5'10" to 6'2". And he's almost a full head and a half taller. So, I mean, that should tell you something. We don't know that much yet about how skilled Omos is in the ring. This guy initially started out as, I guess you call him the bouncer for Raw Underground, which was this, I don't even know what the hell you call that. He's been running around with AJ Styles lately, and now all of a sudden he's involved in the tag team title scene on Monday Night Raw. Okay, I guess they had to do something with him. I'm almost starting to wonder if we're getting like a retread of the Shawn Michaels Diesel storyline. Of course, that's of course one Kevin Nash, who, by the way, is going into the Hall of Fame for the second time alongside Scott Hall and Hulk Hogan as of tonight, April the 6th, 2021. As the 2020 and 2021 classes for the Hall of Fame are being inducted on the same night due to the fact that there was the issue of being unable to really do the Hall of Fame induction last year due to the pandemic. I'm not exactly sure how they're handling it this year. Again, congratulations to everybody from the 2021 class and the 2020 class who are going in. I'll get you the exact readouts for those a little bit after this. Next, we have Bad Bunny and Damian Priest versus The Miz and Morrison. I said this from the get-go. I genuinely believe that The Miz and Morrison will lose. Back when this was a singles match, and I don't know why they made it a tag match. Maybe Bad Bunny's label stepped in and said, yeah, we don't really want you doing too much, so find a way to be involved without potentially risking your health. Because, again, I mean, say what you will, do what you may. Professional wrestling is by no means, something you can get away from without taking some bumps and bruises and broken bones if you're in there long enough, if not worse. Now, I predicted that Bad Bunny would defeat The Miz, probably due to the actions of Damian Priest. We now have it as a straight tag match. I honestly think we're going to see Damian Priest doing the majority of the work for his tag team, but I do believe it's still going to be Bad Bunny and Damian Priest would be the ones going over, simply because, again, it's a celebrity coming in to, have a match, so he's going to win, because there has yet to be any case outside of WrestleMania 2 that I'm aware of where a celebrity has faced a wrestler and lost. So, yeah, that's unfortunately kind of been a thing. Then we get Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair. Now, I know a lot of you saying, well, wait a minute, shouldn't that be the main event? It might actually be, it might not. I personally don't care for Bianca Belair. I don't like that they're trying to rehash the Mr. Perfect gimmick with somebody who doesn't really feel to me like they have the charisma to pull it off. I'm not saying she's a bad wrestler. She certainly has, the basics down, and she's very talented beyond just the basics in terms of her in-ring ability. I just don't like the gimmick, because Mr. Perfect had a certain amount of charisma that could make you love to cheer him if he was a face, or want to basically strangle the guy if he was a heel, which was what you were supposed to do. The problem with Bianca is she seems bland at this. It's like, oh, I'm the EST of WWE. That means I'm the toughest, the badass. It's like, you are the dumbest at this point. It's just like, I'm sorry, this gimmick just doesn't work for you. You should find a different gimmick. I'm sorry. There's no other way to put this. The way they've been building this, however, I do believe we're going to see Bianca Belair walk out with the SmackDown Women's Championship. So I do believe, is going to go over Sasha Banks, barring some kind of shenanigans or Sasha suddenly turning heel. I'm not sure if they would do that. They might do that simply because, why not? Put her back together with Bayley, have them go after the women's tag straps again. It's not impossible. But, if anything, I could almost see a heel turn from Sasha after losing the match. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. All right, so that's night one, right up until the main event, as I expect it to be, and that's going to be Bobby Lashley versus Drew McIntyre. Now, this was a very bizarre storyline that seems like beyond convoluted. I don't even know why they did it. So let me set the stage for you. Drew McIntyre defended the title successfully at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. As a result of this, we then see Bobby Lashley come into the ring, beat the living daylights out of an already exhausted Drew McIntyre. 1 second, folks. I got to get something out of my throat. Sorry about that. Also, hey, Marcus, how you doing? So, we now have a fully beaten down Drew McIntyre. He's already exhausted. He just had the crap kicked out of him by Lashley. Here comes The Miz. He cashes in his money in the bank. 1, 2, 3, boom, boom, boom. We've had 2 cash-ins in this. 1 second. I still got something on my neck. Don't know what caused that. Drives me nuts. Anyway, so then 2 weeks later, we have The Miz loses the title to Bobby Lashley because apparently they struck some kind of a deal, and then Shane McMahon got involved. It was a whole weird thing, but long story short, we get the Bobby Lashley almighty era thing. So whatever. I call him the all boring era because, I'm sorry. This guy, he's okay as a heel, but they've decided we're just going to make him the next Brock Lesnar, and you know how much I can't stand him. So, yeah, that's a thing. So, we now have this situation where It's Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley is made for WrestleMania. And we had this great match at Fastlane where he and Sheamus just tear down the house. And then we get to this really bizarre breakup of the Hurt Business. And I don't know what the story was here, because these four were a fairly effective stable. But basically what ended up happening was about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks ago now, we have Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin, both men who have held championship gold in the past. In fact, Shelton's championship pedigree is nothing to sneeze at. They get into this weird thing where they're basically trying to screw around with Sheamus during a match between him and Bobby Lashley. So Sheamus loses, and then MVP starts berating them, saying that it made it look like Bobby needed help to deal with Sheamus. Now, I don't understand why this is even a thing, because they've done this kind of crap before. I mean, this was literally, heel tag team, heel stable wrestling 101. Even the big giant wrestler dudes, if they were the centerpiece of a stable, would have their underlings doing this crap. So it's like, okay, so wait, is this supposed to be a face turn? Is this supposed to be a heel turn? What is this? So then they say, well, how are you going to make this up to us for making Bobby look bad? Well, they decide they're going to challenge Drew McIntyre to a 2-on-1 match. And Drew's like, all right, let's do that, but let's put a stipulation on it. If I win, those two are barred from ringside at WrestleMania. Well, naturally, he wins. So here's where things get odd. We then have MVP saying, how dare you get yourself barred from ringside? So wait, you didn't need help to deal with Sheamus, but you do need help to deal with Drew McIntyre? I mean, I'm sorry. This is literally two guys who are around the same height and weight, who just love to beat the crap out of people, but you only needed help against the Scotsman? Yeah, I'm sorry, no. That makes no sense. And then to make things even stranger, Bobby says, hey, you know what? I'll put anybody who takes out Drew McIntyre into the championship match at WrestleMania. So this is already getting a little odd, or even odder than it already was, and believe me, that's saying a lot. So then we get Baron Corbin, now calling himself King Corbin. Yeah, Baron to King, you figured that out, whatever. So he shows up, attacks Drew like last week, and then he has a match with Drew this week, with the idea being, hey, I'm going to beat him so bad he's not going to make it to WrestleMania. Doesn't quite work out that way. So the match is still on. It is still Bobby versus Drew for the world title. Why does Bobby care about having anybody at ringside? Well, the one thing I will state, and this is the one thing I will give them credit for, is they did explain why all of a sudden Bobby wanted Drew taken out. And this is probably a first for a heel, where literally, and granted, the MVP is his mouthpiece, so this is technically coming from MVP, but the idea is still the same, and it still makes perfect sense. The idea is, why should we want to face Drew at his absolute best at WrestleMania? If we can take him on in a situation where we know he's going in at less than 100%, that makes things all the easier for us, and we'll take that. I will give them absolute credit for this. It was the first time, the only time I've ever heard a heel basically come out and say it. Absolutely. First time I've ever heard him or any other heel come out and just say, yeah, we are perfectly fine with going up against somebody who's not 100%, because it'll make things easier for us to win and take home a paycheck. I will give all the credit in the world to the fact that they actually did this. Now, who do I think is going to win? I'll be honest, I want Drew to win, and part of me is pulling for him because it seems like it's a very, very odd way to go about having a heel as champion going into WrestleMania. And it's the only thing I can think of is the only reason why they did this is so that Drew can get his third championship. Now, does that necessarily mean that he will indeed do so? I'd like to think it does because I'm sorry, like the quote-unquote almighty era is just boring and bland, at least to me. I know there are a lot of people out there who are undoubtedly fans of Bobby Lashley. I'm just not one of them. Could they decide to have Bobby successfully retain over Drew? Absolutely. Absolutely. Do I think that's what they're going to do? No, not really. My personal belief is that they wanted to put another person on the championship belt, have it around his waist as a heel, go into WrestleMania and lose to to Drew. And in this case, they chose Bobby Lashley. I don't know why they didn't just stick with The Miz. I mean, I can understand wanting to have it look like he's up against somebody who's a legitimate threat. But let's be honest, Drew McIntyre has beaten a lot of people in WWE, including Bobby Lashley in the past. The Miz has beaten Bobby Lashley in the past. Granted, that was when Bobby Lashley was a face, so whether or not you think that counts, that's up to you. So that's where we stand for night one. Again, I'd love to see Drew win. I don't know if that's where they're going, but that would be my pick. So now we get night two. We got Jax and Baszler with Reginald, which they're doing this weird storyline where I guess Nia Jax has some kind of a romantic interest in Reginald, the former sommelier or whatever the hell he was supposed to be for Carmella. Taking on the winners of Tag Team Turmoil. Like I said, I'd like to see this be Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose, simply because they haven't really done a lot with this tag team. It could be anybody out of those 1, 2, 3, 4, it looks like tag teams. But again, I'm hoping it is Brooke and Rose. We'll see. And I'd like to see them win. But this, again, is going to be 50-50 because I don't know who's going to be coming out on top at the Tag Team Turmoil. I know who my pick is. If it does turn out to be Dana and Mandy, I'd like to see them walk out with the championships just because, again, they haven't really done much with this tag team, and this would be a way to develop them. Next, Riddle versus Sheamus. This is a bit of a funny situation. Drew and Sheamus tore the house down at Fastlane in an absolutely phenomenal match. Matt Riddle he's weird. I'm sorry, like his gimmick is just weird. I don't know if he's a stoner or what. He's definitely a space cadet, though. I'll give him that. So we have Riddle versus Sheamus. It's going to be for the United States Championship. Now, I did predict that we were going to have a U.S. title match at WrestleMania. I just didn't know who the opponent was going to be. Turns out now we know it is Sheamus. Okay. It's a little odd, but I can work with it. Now, here's the thing. This could have been a match where they could have done Bobby versus Sheamus for the U.S. title. And again, I don't know why they decided to do this the way they did, but okay, whatever. They turned Sheamus. Now, all of a sudden, Matt Riddle ends up winning the U.S. title in a triple threat match. And now it's going to be Riddle versus Sheamus for the U.S. title. Again, I don't entirely follow the logic. I'm not sure there was any logic here. But I will admit, Riddle is growing on me. At first, I was not particularly a fan of it because it just seemed like Rob Van Dam 2.0 and done in a very, very, half-assed way. But I think that's part of the joke of Riddle's character. And like I said, he's starting to grow on me. Does that necessarily mean I want to see him walk out with the U.S. title? Honestly, no. I don't mind if he wins, but at the same time, I think we're going to see Sheamus win the U.S. title. And I would not be surprised if that leads into maybe a feud where Riddle chases Sheamus for a little bit for the U.S. title. But I'd love to see this lead into Sheamus versus Drew, champion versus champion at some point. So again, this is a 50-50 shot. I'm going to say Sheamus takes it, but I don't mind if Riddle wins here. Next, we have Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn, who may or may not have Logan Paul in his corner. He's definitely going to be at WrestleMania, at least by his own claiming. We don't know if he's actually going to be in Sami Zayn's corner. Now, Sami Zayn's been on this very odd storyline where he believes there is a conspiracy against him by the WWE management. I mean, I've seen gimmicks similar to this before, and he hasn't changed his gimmick so much as he's changed the storyline. So he's still this kind of character who claims he's the quote-unquote voice of the voiceless. He's basically playing a woke character. He's playing a social justice warrior. And now he thinks, there's this big conspiracy against him by WWE. I don't know. I really am not sure how I'm supposed to respond to this character, whether I'm supposed to like him, whether I'm supposed to hate him. But he's going up against Kevin Owens. Now, these two have had great matches all over the world. I had the opportunity to see them when they were still in Ring of Honor. They had, I think it was the ladder match I'm thinking of, from a couple of years ago at was it? I forget the year, but I think it was one of the Final Battle events they held in Hammerstein. Now, for those of you who don't know, Sami Zayn used to wrestle under a mask and under the name El Generico. So for those of you who are wondering about where he went, that's where he went. He became Sami Zayn, and he is, still doing very, very well in WWE. Now, Zayn held the Intercontinental Championship up until a couple of months ago. He lost the title to Big E, and we'll get to him in a minute. Pretty much from that moment on, we began to see this new storyline where Sami believed that there was a conspiracy by WWE management to keep him down, ruin his career, etc., etc., etc. It largely is designed to be like in his head, and at one point he reaches out to Kevin Owens, his on-again, off-again friend/rival, and he basically pleaded with Owens, please see my point of view on this. Please see that there is a conspiracy, that the WWE management is against me, that the fans are against me, blah, 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 blah. Kevin Owens says, you know what, I'll go out there, I'll watch one of your matches, and if I see anything that indicates that you're right, I'll certainly say so. But if I don't want to hear about this from you ever again. Well, lo and behold, Owens said, yeah, I don't see what you're seeing. And Sami got pissed and attacked him. So that, of course, led to this match. These two, it's a toss-up as to who they could actually pick as the winner for this. I think this is supposed to be the culmination of the conspiracy storyline, at least for now. Or at the very least, might even be the beginnings of a feud between these two. I'm fine with either one. I think based on what I'm seeing here, that means that Kevin's going to get the win here. And then we're going to see this feud potentially continue to SummerSlam. But I could easily see it being the reverse. So this one, I'm going to call it 50-50. Either one of them could win, and I think this could go on to SummerSlam. So this one is basically viewer's pick. Now, next we have the so-called Nigerian drum fight between Big E and Apollo Crews. Now, Apollo Crews had several matches with Big E for the Intercontinental Championship shortly after Big E took the title from Sami Zayn. He lost every time. As a result, Apollo just kept coming back to challenge. And eventually Big E is like, dude, I've already beaten you like 3, 4, 5 times. You're at the back of the line now. Find yourself something to do. Maybe go to catering, have yourself a snack, and let somebody else step up to the plate. Well, Apollo takes exception to this and basically beats the living crap out of Big E. And about a week later, he's suddenly going, I am a Nigerian prince. And I know the accent sounds stupid, but this is the kind of accent that he's putting on. He's faking what is supposed to be, I guess, a Nigerian accent, claiming that he's the descendant of Nigerian royalty and this and that and blah, blah, blah. They had a match at Fastlane for the Intercontinental Championship. Once again, Big E came out on top. Once again, Apollo is upset that he didn't get what he wanted, so he's continued to chase Big E. And now they're having a quote-unquote Nigerian drum fight. And again, let's just be clear on what this is. This is just a straight-up hardcore match. Anything goes. And I hate to say it, but I kind of think we're going to see Apollo come out on top here. Again, this is another one I could say is 50-50, but considering now that we're talking about a hardcore match, that means I think we're going to see Apollo bring in some goons, and they're going to help him get the Intercontinental Championship. I'd love to be wrong here, and if I am, hey, great, but I do think this is where we're going for the Intercontinental Championship, at least for now, and I think we could see this feud continue on to SummerSlam as well. Next, we have The Fiend versus Randy Orton. I'm going to call this right here, The Fiend wins. I'm calling this here and now, The Fiend wins. Simply because for the last few months, Randy's basically been haunted by this character ever since he literally set him on fire. Of course, obviously it wasn't a real person. There was a lot of special effects involved there. But yeah, I mean, they were not going to put somebody's life on the line by having him get set on fire, even with protective liquid. I mean, these guys are not stuntmen. All right. So either way, this is The Fiend's first match back at a major pay-per-view. I think we're going to see Randy Orton potentially go towards a supernatural bent to combat The Fiend. And I think, again, this is a feud that's going to go on to SummerSlam at the very earliest. I could see them going all the way to Survivor Series, honestly, with this one. But either way, The Fiend wins, and I think we're going to see Randy start looking towards a supernatural solution to deal with The Fiend, who is very much a supernatural character and has apparently infected Alexa Bliss with the same weird supernatural powers. Next, we have Asuka versus Rhea Ripley for the women's world title on SmackDown, on Raw, I should say. I'm sorry, we've got 3 freaking women's championships, and they're all called world titles, so I get very annoyed by that. I don't know that much about Rhea Ripley, but since she has just come up apparently from NXT, I'm going to say this right now. I honestly would love to see Asuka win this, but it's a toss-up. So I'm going to say, viewer's choice on this one. I know who I'd like to see win, but I don't know enough about Rhea Ripley to really call this. Finally, we've got Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman in his corner taking on Edge and Daniel Bryan. This is a triple threat match for the Universal Championship. Now, I did predict that we were going to see something like this for WrestleMania because there was really otherwise no reason to insert Daniel Bryan into a championship match at Fastlane unless they were going to bring somehow more championship matches or alter the main match for the Universal title. And I assumed it was either going to be that they were going to have a triple threat match, or they were going to have one match held on the first night and then another match held on the second night. As it turns out, I was correct in predicting the triple threat match. Now, I'm very curious about this. And I can think of 2 reasons why they would do this. One, I do think they want to give the belt to Edge since he did just come back. but I could also see them being interested in giving the belt to Daniel Bryan. So why the triple threat match? I think it's so this way one of these two men can end up winning the Universal Championship without having to pin Roman and thus potentially make him look weaker by comparison, because he's looked very strong as a heel, and just have him kind of being upset that he was never pinned for the championship, and then chase the champion, who was also embroiled in a feud with either Bryan or Edge, depending on who wins the championship here, and have this go again either to SummerSlam or to the Survivor Series, and I'm going to say more likely SummerSlam. So we have three possibilities here. And any one of these could be accurate. We'll see which one of my predictions comes. Actually, well, I've got a couple of predictions here, but we'll see which one comes true. One, we could see Roman successfully defend the Universal title, probably through the actions of Jey Uso getting involved, which is pretty standard for him, and he's not involved in any other match that night. So unless they have somehow gotten him barred from ringside, we could see him back in the ring area, possibly even getting into the ring, because again, no countouts and I believe no disqualifications in most standard triple threat matches for the WWE. So Roman could theoretically succeed in defending the championship. But again, that's one possible way they could go. If that does happen, expect Edge to snap and just beat the crap out of potentially both Jey Uso and Daniel Bryan, blaming them for being involved in his match. And then potentially we could see him chasing Roman until SummerSlam while also trying to fend off Daniel Bryan. Now, we could also see Edge successfully win the championship, at which point he's going to go, hey, everything I said was true. I knew I could beat Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns knew he couldn't beat me, and Daniel Bryan didn't even deserve to be in this match, which could theoretically then have both of these two chasing after Edge, and I think it'll probably be Daniel Bryan who ends up facing him at SummerSlam if they do have Edge win the championship, because I think the only other, and again, this is something I brought up going into Fastlane, I'm wondering about the medical condition of Roman, because again, this seems like they want to give him a chance to kind of stay out of the match and just let these two go at it, because he may need a little bit of a lighter match simply because of what's going on. Remember that Roman has had several battles with leukemia. So if that is beginning to resurface, that's kind of a problem for him. So this could be one way to get the title off of him without making him look weak, and then potentially, if he's not involved in the next few months for the championship, have him come back and go, hey, I never actually lost that belt. It's a possible thing. But again, there could be absolutely nothing wrong with him, and they just want to go a different way storyline-wise. Now, the final thing that we could see is, and by the way, in that scenario where Edge wins it, we could see Bryan snap and just start wailing on Edge with a chair, and then just have them, feud until SummerSlam. Now, the final scenario, at least that I can think of off the top of my head, at least as far as how this match could go in terms of there actually being a winner, would be Daniel Bryan winning, Edge going ballistic, beating the crap out of both men, when they're completely exhausted, and screaming, this was my moment, this was my night, the usual typical things for a heel who was just snapped, and have him chase Daniel Bryan until SummerSlam or even the Survivor Series. They could also be doing a long-form story where Daniel wins the title and could potentially hold it until WrestleMania 38. I don't think they're going to do that. But these are the possibilities. Of the three, I do think we're going to see Edge walk out with the championship, simply because otherwise him coming back the way he did is kind of hollow. I mean, he came back a little over a year ago, had a great match with Randy Orton, then got injured in a rematch with Randy Orton, was gone for about 9 months, came back, won the Royal Rumble of 2021, and now, he's going after the Universal Championship. Now, I don't know why all of a sudden Daniel Bryan was involved with this. Maybe they need him to be somebody for Edge to feud with in case Roman needs to go back into the hospital or whatever to deal with leukemia, because, again, he has had issues with that in the past. So I don't know what's going on there. I do expect Edge to win. However, there is a scenario where it could be that nobody wins, and that is simply because, there are so many people who've got to be pissed at Jey Uso that, if Jey gets involved, we could see a bunch of people come down and just start laying everybody out and just end the whole thing in a complete no contest. I don't think they're going to do that. It would certainly be a unique way to end WrestleMania, but I don't know if there's any truth to that. I do know that a friend of mine has suggested the possibility that The Rock may be coming back because the posters for WrestleMania 37, have part of his catchphrase on it with that whole finally thing. But no, that's, I think, a reference to the fact that WrestleMania finally has, an actual crowd watching the show. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But that is a rumor that I have heard, in fact, just today. Will The Rock show up? Maybe. Do I care if he does? No, not really. Because at this point, the only reason he'd come back would probably be to promote some new movie. Or maybe to bitch slap Roman Reigns and go, yeah, I know you've kind of shamed the Anoa'i family, but whatever. I just don't care if The Rock comes back. Like, at all. So let's look into now the WWE Hall of Fame induction, because we're going to get into this one. So we have the Hall of Fame class of 2020 and 2021. Would you give me just a moment, folks? I've got somebody at my door. Sorry about that, folks. I just had a delivery. So let's take a look at the inductees for 2020. Now, last year, we did not have the inductees for the simple reason that, well, the pandemic. Let's just call it what it is. That is the whole reason that the WWE did not do the inductions last year. So the 2021 class and the 2020 class are going in the same day, which, of course, the induction should be happening, might be happening right now, actually. You're going to hear a little bit of cutting here for a moment, folks, and a box opening, because I just got a delivery, and that's because, for those of you who may or may not be aware, I have developed a mild case of carpal tunnel. So that's kind of a pain in the ass, but, you got to take the good with the bad in life, so I just hope they didn't screw up the order and give me the wrong side brace. Anyway, so the inductees from 2020. John Bradshaw Layfield is one of the first ones. And this is kind of an interesting situation. So we have the list of championships. Let's take a look into why this man was given how to decide. All right, so Former WWE Champion, Intercontinental Champion, United States Champion, Tag Team Championship, held 3 times, European Champion, 18-time Hardcore title, held the Slammy Awards. So, and yes, I did just get my new brace in, and it does appear to be correct. So, give me a moment while I put this on. It's one of the weirder things I've ever seen with Bradshaw, so give him credit for, getting into the Hall of Fame. I certainly do. And I think you should as well. There we go. I knew there was something wrong going on there. And yes, it is for the appropriate side. So there we are. I now have a proper wrist brace. Okay, so he's also a commentator for WWE. Did very, very long work for them on that. He also was the creator of WWE's Tribute to the Troops, and this, to this day, I will absolutely give him all the credit in the world for that. So there's that. We have a posthumous inductee in the form of the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith, former Intercontinental Champion, the inaugural European Champion, held the title twice, 2-time Hardcore Champion, and 2-time World Tag Team Champion. Now, this, of course, back when they were still under the WWF label and logo. Now, here's the one that I was a little surprised to hear that he was inducted. Jushin Thunder Liger is part of the class of 2020. He's an 11-time holder of the IWGP Junior World Heavyweight Champion, 1-time WCW World Light Heavyweight Champion, and one of the biggest names in Japan's history. He was actually a wrestling tie-in to an anime, also called Jushin Liger. He's a long outlasted the anime. Let me put it this way: long outlasted the anime. So there you go. The character also suffered, I think I heard he had brain cancer or a brain tumor or something. He successfully had surgery, got it removed, had several great matches in the intervening years since. Retired not last year, but the year before. Had never wrestled for the WWE as far as I'm aware. If anybody knows differently for that in the audience here watching the show, please let me know or leave a comment. We'll go from there. Then you have 2 groups going in. Well, they call it group, but it's more like multiple inductees on a single shot. First, you have the Bella Twins. Now, that's Nikki and Brie Bella. Both women had been part of the TV show Total Divas. Nikki Bella. Let's see her list of accomplishments that they're putting in for her. 2-time Divas champion, also apparently the longest running Divas champion. Also won the 2015 Diva of the Year Slammy Award. Then, of course, you have her sister Brie, former Divas champion, and in 2013 and 2014 won the Slammy Award for Couple of the Year due to her relationship with Daniel Bryan. Okay, whatever. The big one for 2020 was the announcement of the induction of the New World Order as a group. Now, that's Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall alongside Sean Waltman. So it is the original 3 plus Waltman, who joined a few weeks to a few months after the inaugural formation of the NWO. These guys, their accomplishments run with almost a who's who. All right? Hogan, 6-time WWF/E champion, 6-time WCW champion, won the inaugural IWGP championship. There's a whole story behind that. I'll try to find a link and bring that up sometime in the near future, because that's a story in and of itself. Held various regional titles, I'm sure. We know all about his run in Hollywood, beginning with Rocky III and moving on from there. Held the World Tag Team Championships in the WWF a grand total of once, alongside Edge, which was kind of interesting. Here's the thing. Every single member of the NWO who's going in this year is a 2-time inductee, as every single one of these individuals has been inducted previously for their singles career. So, Kevin Nash, former WWF champion, former Intercontinental champion, former Tag Team champion. In fact, he is somewhat famous for having won what was then known as the WWF Triple Crown in one calendar year. And even looking back at that, it's still a pretty impressive accomplishment. He held the WCW World Tag Team Championships. I believe he held the U.S. title. Don't hold me to that. But I know for a fact he's a former WCW World Heavyweight Champion. World TV, good Lord, I can't believe you just said that. Scott Hall, another guy with a pretty impressive championship listing. 4-time Intercontinental Champion, the first man to hold the title 4 times, I believe. I believe that was the only championship he might have held in the WWF. I will double check that, but I believe that could be the case. Former co-holder of the World Tag Team Championships in WCW. Former title holder in the American Wrestling Association by winning the AWA World Heavyweight Tag Team Championships. This is a new one. I'm looking up his list of accomplishments here. Some of these I don't recognize at all. Won the USWA Unified World Heavyweight Championship, which is pretty impressive. He did hold the U.S. title. He co-held the World Tag Team Championship with technically 2 different partners, even though it was the single time he'd held the championship. You figure that out. Held the World Wrestling Council heavyweight title. Well, here's the thing. They got 2 heavyweight titles. So the Caribbean heavyweight title and the Universal Heavyweight Championship. Yes. There was a Universal title long before there was a WWE Universal title. They do not have the exclusive rights to that. And yeah, the Intercontinental Championship was the only title he ever held in WWE. So that's kind of interesting. Sean Waltman's kind of an interesting little situation here. His tag team titles primarily come with Kane and apparently he did the same thing with the WCW World title that Scott Hall did in TNA, where he held the championship 1 time, but with 2 different partners. You figure that one out. His WWF/WWE title run is much beefier. 2-time European champion, 2-time light heavyweight champion, 1-time holder of the WCW Cruiserweight Championship, 4-time WWF World Tag Team Championship co-holder with Marty Jannetty, Bob Holly, and Kane twice. Won the Slammy Award for Biggest Heart in 1994, whatever. And of course, 2 times in the Hall of Fame. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg, because if you want to look these guys up, go ahead. The one thing I do want to double check here is Kevin Nash, because I'm not sure. Did he hold the? No, he did not. I knew he'd held the tag titles and the world title, but yeah, he did not hold the U.S. title. And again, like I said, he held the Triple Crown in terms of winning the WWF title, the Intercontinental title, and the tag belts in 1 calendar year. He would hold the tag team titles twice, both times with Shawn Michaels. So there you go. So that's, for the most part, the class of 2020, except for the celebrity inductee, which apparently is William Shatner. I didn't expect that. And then we have Titus O'Neil, who apparently is getting the Warrior Award in honor of his charity work, primarily in his hometown of Tampa, Florida, which is also where Hulk Hogan is from. So now we get to the individual inductees for 2021. I'm going to give these a relatively quick overview. You've got Molly Holly, Eric Bischoff, Kane, The Great Khali, and Rob Van Dam as your individuals. Celebrity inductee is going to be one Ozzy Osbourne, which is interesting. And then Rich Herring is getting the Warrior Award. He is the Senior Vice President of Government Relations and Risk Management for WWE. So that's kind of interesting. As far as the accomplishments, again, let's run this off real quick. Molly Holly, two-time WWE Women's Champion, held the WWF Hardcore title. Yes, you heard me right, Hardcore title. Eric Bischoff, former Senior Vice President of WCW. Effectively, he was in charge of the company. Former WCW Hardcore Champion. I don't even remember that. He was the manager, or I should say general manager, for the WWE Raw brand for a couple of years. Created the Elimination Chamber and Raw Roulette, which I guess is a variant of the old WCW Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal thing from Halloween Havoc 1992. The Great Khali, former World Heavyweight Champion. First ever World Champion to be of Indian descent. Won a Slammy Award in 2008 for the Damn Moment of the Year. And that basically just means a moment like where you just sit back and go, damn. So that's all that is. Rob Van Dam, one-time WWE Champion, one-time ECW World Champion under Vince McMahon when the ECW brand was revived under his label, so whatever. Six-time WWE Intercontinental Champion, four-time Hardcore Champion, one-time European Champion, also the last man to hold the European and Hardcore titles. Held the WWE Tag Team Championships with Kane. Two-time World Tag Team titles, I think the one with Kane. I forget who held the WWE Tag, and yes, I did say WWE as if it was a different title, because remember, there were two different versions of that belt, just like there are now. 2 years he ran undefeated as ECW World Champion under the original ownership of first Todd Gordon and then Paul Heyman, and former ECW World Tag Team Championship co-holder, and won the Money in the Bank briefcase at 2006's Money in the Bank. Then we finally got Kane, so we're going to run him down as far as his accomplishments. Not run him down, but we're going to run down his accomplishments. Or I should list down his accomplishments. Wow, I just realized how just bad that sounded. Okay, whatever. One-time WWF World Champion, one-time WCW World Heavyweight Champion, one-time ECW Champion. Well, no, I'm going to call that just World Heavyweight Champion. Again, WCW World Title's got a weird situation with them. Two-time Intercontinental Champion, one-time Hardcore Champion, one-time 24/7 Champion, two-time co-holder of the WWE Tag Team Championships, 9-time World Tag Team Champion. Yeah, he's got a record 11 championships. I think Jey Uso and his brother Jimmy are the only ones who have matched that. One-time WCW Tag Team Champion. SmackDown's 2010 Money in the Bank winner. Two-time Slammy Award winner. The first one in 2010 for the Best Family Values for beating up Jack Swagger. And then 2014 for the Survivor Series Elimination Match. Match of the year. That was the winner for there. Most cumulative Royal Rumble match eliminations at 46. And most Royal Rumble match appearances at 20. So there we go. That is the entirety of the Hall of Fame. Okay, so I'm going to take a step away from that, and I'm going to round this up. It's been about an hour. So I'm going to round this up with a little bit of political talk. I don't like getting political if I can avoid it, and I think most people here know that. But we're kind of not going to be able to avoid getting political. So we've got to talk about the elephant in the room because we just got done talking about wrestling. So we do, in fact, have to talk about Major League Baseball. And I can hear everybody cringing now. It's like, oh, God, why? Let me first state, I don't normally watch baseball, football, basketball, bowling, golf, whatever sport you want to come up with other than professional wrestling. It's just never really been my bag. Now, I have been watching this situation with Georgia where basically what they have done is create a new voting law that helps to basically put some things in place at a reduced version from what was going on with the pandemic, where you have drop box voting, early voting, et cetera, et cetera. The only thing Georgia seems to be asking of people is that you have a valid photo ID if you want to ask for absentee ballots, and obviously you just need an ID just to vote to verify your identity. And I keep hearing this complaint is like, oh, but what about the loss of all these drop boxes from 94 to 23 across each county? Okay, so here's the thing. The reason for the multiple drop boxes was the pandemic. Now, here's the thing. They're not removing those early drop boxes altogether. What they're doing is reducing them by something to the neighborhood of around 51 drop boxes in each county. So they're not going away altogether. They're just lowering the amount that you can have, in each area. That's not in any way a problem. Nor is, the idea of, hey, just please have voter ID, or rather photo ID, so this way we can verify that you are who you say you are. And I hear immediately people going, oh, but the left says that's voter suppression. Yeah, well, you kind of hit the nail on the head. The left says that. The left, or rather the mainstream media, have had a history of, let's face it, playing up the victim card, going, oh, we didn't get things we wanted in the exact way we wanted. Therefore, we're going to pretend we've been slighted. And that's really what this kind of boils down to. It comes down to the fact that the left was very happy with what was going on with the temporary things that were put in place, especially in Georgia. And they was like, hey, look at this. We get all this stuff, right? Yes. But now all of a sudden, we've now seen that Georgia is pulling back on a few things, but otherwise basically making those things permanent, just at a reduced level. Where's the problem? Well, the problem, according to the left, is, well, you don't have as many boxes to drop things off in if you're absentee voting. And then the other one that I keep hearing is, oh, well, you're not getting as many days to vote early. There are literally less days to vote early in New York than there are in Georgia. Nobody seems to be complaining about that in New York. And then the big issue of the whole voter ID thing is like, well, you need to present an ID to buy cigarettes, to buy alcohol. You need a license to drive, which itself is a form of photo ID. You need a photo ID in order to buy marijuana. Why wouldn't you want to have a photo ID in hand to vote? So this way you can say, yeah, this is me voting. If anybody else tries to claim that they're me, they're lying. It's pretty straightforward. There's nothing here that is suppressive or in any way, as fuckwit Biden wants to put it, Jim Crow 2.0. No, it's really not. It's literally going, okay, we're going to take certain things that were done during the pandemic, put them at a slightly lower level, but otherwise make them permanent. So the Democrats should be happy about that because, hey, look at this. You got all these things you wanted from the pandemic and they're staying, just not quite at the same amount that you wanted. Instead, we're going to have it be about 23 boxes for absentee voting across the various counties. So it's going to be 20, I believe, from what I'm understanding, it's 23 in each county. And they're going, oh, but that's going to disenfranchise black people. Why? Why would that disenfranchise black people? You can still vote early. You still have these drop boxes. The only thing Georgia is really implementing now is we want to confirm that the people who come up and say, hi, my name is such and such, and I'm going to be, and I'm here to vote, photo ID. That's all they ask for. And here's the kicker. Here in New York, they do ask us for photo ID. They did when I went to go vote in the 2020 elections, the 2016 elections, the frickin' both times I voted for Obama, they always say, do you have photo ID? It's like, yeah, I've got ID. I can prove I am who I say I am. There is nothing wrong with this. But the left, especially the lying shitlords, that's Anna Kasparian, Cenk Uygur, and all their other little motherfucking butt nuggets, are saying, oh, this is going to be bad. This is going to disenfranchise people of color. Dude, I'm mixed race and Jewish. I quote unquote pass for white, whatever the fuck that means. But I'll tell you right now, all right, I think you're full of shit. All right, stop trying to speak for minorities. We aren't your goddamn shield. All right, now MLB decided they were going to take the All-Star game out of Georgia and claim, oh, well, we're doing it because this is voter suppression, even though it doesn't suppress the vote. Oh, and the other big argument. Oh, they're not letting people give you water and snacks. No, you can give people water and snacks. You just can't campaign while you're doing it. You can't go out there with a shirt that says, hey, vote for this person. By the way, here's a drink. It's stupid. It's idiotic. And the kicker is they decided they're going to move to Colorado for the All-Star game, which has almost identical fucking laws to what's going on in Georgia. You fucking figure that out. So it's like, this is bullshit. And I really hope they call somebody out on this. They won't, but I wish they would. All right. I have rambled for about an hour and 18 minutes. I've got nothing else to say tonight. I'm going to go watch The Flash, and we'll talk more on either Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, depending on what I feel like, or maybe next week. It's not like I have a set schedule here. Bye, folks.